It will be the lore you know.
Here to call you a liar. I'm here to get your wisdom on all things animation and cat related. You've come appropriately dressed, I see, for this one.
Yes, those are my biggest two topics of expertise, frankly.
Yeah. Would you say Puss in Boots counts as a cryptid? He's a cat who wears shoes. That feels like it could be, right?
No, CJ.
Yeah.
So that's folklore or fairy tale.
Yeah.
Cryptids are specifically creatures that have been seen that or documented in some way that are a scientific anomaly.
You're telling me a cat wearing shoes is not a scientific anomaly?
Well, that hasn't been documented.
People aren't claiming that they've actually seen Puss in Boots.
Several movies about it. I'm sure someone has claimed this. I'm sure someone's like, I saw it. He was out in my backyard.
Listen, everyone asks this about Paul Bunyan, and I'm like, has anyone seen Paul Bunyan or his story that you tell?
I don't know. His many establishments.
I've seen his statue.
That's an interesting one, though, because all the lumberjacks from that time, they did claim I used to work at a different place with Paul Bunyan.
Right.
Well, all the lumberjacks would say that they saw the
But
thing.
his larger than life folklore stories. Those are the parts that, and his blue ox.
Yeah, that could plow mountains of dust.
And though there is a part of a Paul Bunyan lore that is considered a cryptid, which I'm not sure why this one gets to be a cryptid, but Paul isn't, which is the axe handle hound, which is a dog.
Yeah, I love that one.
Has a head that looks like an axe.
Yeah, and then you swing it
Because I guess
around.
people claim they have seen this one, so that's why it gets cryptid status.
Why?
Yeah.
What evolution caused it? Is he like a beaver? Does he make dams?
I don't know. I feel like maybe there's a story that goes with it that he swallowed an axe and it just looks like that.
Well, you are what you eat.
But I don't know. That's all to be said that no, Puss in Boots is not a cryptid because no one has seen that except if you count our cat Peppermint, who has little booties on.
He's got little socks. Yep. Well, that's as good of an intro as anything. Welcome to the Lore You Know. We do a podcast every other week, and we talk about all of the best cryptids. At this point, we've talked about a lot of cryptids, but actually we talk about the deep lore of all of your favorite media, from things from books to, in this case, movies, if you can believe. We're back from video games, and we're going to movies. Guys, did you know that the three of us all saw a movie together for the first time in 4 years?
I haven't known either of you for 4 years.
I mean, in theaters, yeah.
In theaters.
Well, it's like when we all went to that.
I mean, we went and saw Triple R before that, but we just saw it at the house together, and we did scream an awful lot.
Well,
that's good.
We did all go see the not Starbomb, the Ninja Sex Party concert together. We didn't know that we didn't go together. We just years later all realized that we were all at the same concert at the same time before we all knew each other. So maybe we did see a movie earlier and we just didn't know it.
It's almost like we have similar tastes.
It's almost like we lived in the same city for a while as well. So,
but we did see a movie together.
Yeah, that
was quite good.
It ties into the title of this episode. Do you want to reveal it, even though we've already said it many times?
Me?
Yeah, sure. You're a guest host.
Wow.
Again, Lizzie.
I'm just shocked to be given that.
Well, you can do the intro too, except every time you do it, you treat it like a fucking joke. You don't appreciate the sanctity of the intro sequence. People need stability.
CJ is throwing a lot of shade for the intro he does not remember.
I don't really. I feel disrespected now. I was given an honor and then I was disrespected in the same sentence.
That's
so.
a classic male move.
We-
it's I'm both lowering
you,
your
negging
social
me?
status and raising mine. Exactly. Yeah.
We should really just like take a clip of Fran doing the intro, and then even when she's not here, just post the same one in every time.
And then
Or
just,
if you
like,
had
move our
like a
mouths.
script of it and you could just
We
send it
do
to
have
me
a
and I'd
script
read
of
it.
it.
Oh,
That
okay,
sounds
well
like a
then
lot
why-
of work.
Then why didn't
I-
we do that?
I was going back through my notes. I'm pretty sure I wrote it, by the way.
I'm just gonna say what I've said before, which is welcome to the Lore You Know, which is the podcast where we lore you more know
I mean,
your.
can you imagine? We actually do this show in one take. It's crazy. I know a lot of people think, wow, you guys must record on many days. And you
So
must
much
put all the
editing
best
must
parts
take
together."
place.
We're all just reading the scripts that are in front of us where it says, and now Lizzie says, and then welcome to the
Mhm.
big lore 444.
Yeah, our
at
our
Arby's.
recording team yells, "Cut! Tell me that one again, but with more passion this time."
Yeah, that is what they say. All right, no, let's get into the topic today. I'm excited to talk about Puss in Boots. I'm excited, Ethan and Lizzie, because this was a fan submission. Can you believe it? Someone
Oh.
who listens to the show told us to do an episode on Puss in Boots, and now we're doing it. So let that be a lesson
That's
to
great.
you.
This is history.
This is. Thanks for our listener, Sammy. Big shout outs. And if you have any ideas for shows or have something cool you want to see, put it in the comments if this is a YouTube video, or tweet at us at Spices With if this is an internet. Or we have an email, cookingwithspices69@gmail.com. Can you believe that all 68 Cooking with Spices were taken? And I had to go with that one, but you
I
know,
had no
it worked.
choice.
I mean, I was just going down the list. Crazy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, But no, we're going to talk about Puss in Boots. We're going to talk about a few things, all right?
Mm.
Obviously, Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, the movie just came out. That's the movie that we all saw together. Because we're
Solid.
adults, so when we go see movies, we go see children animation together
Mhm.
and, drink a bunch of wine beforehand.
I
And
mean-
we critique them very heavily.
Oh, yeah.
Do we?
I mean-
I'm usually just like, cats wearing shoes.
To be fair, I feel like we got into that theater and it was like 3/4 adults. Like it was mostly adults who were going
I
to
don't-
see Puss in Boots.
Should we tell that little colloquial story about when we went though? Because the movie we went to has assigned seating, and then we went to our assigned seats and there was a person in them, and we're like, oh hey, this is our seat, and they're like, oh okay, sorry. So then they just move over one, and then other people show up because it's their assigned seats, and then I'm like, oh, so you just wanted these good ass seats that we reserved ahead of time because we are adults. We're not lugging around a bunch of children here. We know how this works. You go to the internet, you buy tickets, and you get the best spots 3 days in advance, and then you go to the movie
So
theater.
confusing, because why did they not just choose those seats if they wanted to sit there? Like, you touch the screen when you walk into the theater. And
Right.
then
They were
like,
there
they were like
first.
walking around the theater during like the first 20 minutes of the movie, presumably because they were just going to other seats and sitting
Right.
down in them, and people kept showing up, and it's like, wait, did you just go into the
So,
sold
yeah,
out movie
it
theater and
could
then
have
expect to
just
just
been that
find
they did not get
seats?
tickets.
Huh,
That's
I
crazy.
mean, yeah, it might be that they just did not get tickets, but I like to imagine that, yeah, they went up to the thing, they chose a few crappy seats, and then just went and sat in better ones. We're like, they probably won't show. It'll be fine.
That's what my mom taught me to do with baseball games. She's like, you can just sit in a different spot, and then if someone else says
Why is
that's
that
their
such
spot,
a
you just
parent
move.
thing to say? Because my parents have said that before as well. And I'm
Because
like, but
in-
what if they come?
In
It's like, they
fairness,
might be
no one
coming still.
sells out a baseball game. No one gives a shit about baseball. There is like a 9 out of 10 chance that seat is unoccupied and you can just sit there. It's because they don't want to get upcharged, because they're like, wow, you didn't even. It's like, honestly, if you're in an airplane and the good seats aren't filled up, you should be able to sit there. Like, and I guess
I feel
sometimes
that.
they do that, but also if you can beat the person who has that seat in a fist fight, you should also be able to
I
get
was just
that
going to
seat.
say, right now, we really do not need any more discourse happening on planes.
You don't think
The
so?
no-fly list has been leaked. and it's gonna keep growing.
I'm glad I can see who's on the no-fly list. I think it's weird it was secret to begin with.
All right.
That's fair.
I feel like all of this has been a great setup for our topic today.
Yeah,
What are we
so-
talking about again?
Oh, right, Puss in Boots. All right, yeah, we're gonna talk about a couple of things. So first, we're gonna talk about the movie. I mean, we'll get to that, but Ethan, this is not. I know when we went to go see Puss in Boots, you were so excited to see the theatrical debut of our favorite little orange pussycat. But
Well, it's
this
not the
is-
theatrical
this is
debut.
Not the first Puss in Boots movie, even standalone movie. There was another one.
What?
Which I had to rent from Amazon and watch. So I have that knowledge in my head now. But fortunately for us here at the Lore You Know, that movie gives us the definitive like origin story of Puss in Boots. So we can indeed get all of those juicy lore bits for our favorite little tabby cat. And then we can talk about how he was in Shrek. I think
Okay.
What? He was in
there.
Shrek?
I know, right?
So are
A
we
little
just
cameo role?
we're going like in chronological order of the history of Puss in Boots, not in like
Yeah.
title release order, but in his life
Yeah, that's
story.
that's what we always do. Yeah, of course we're gonna do that.
All right, hell yeah, hell
and,
yeah.
and then we can talk about some inspirations for Puss in Boots. Like Lizzie, you mentioned a fairy tale. That's right. I found it.
True.
Weirdly not as it was so hard to find Puss in Boots because when you type it in, you just you get the Shrek one. But
Mhm.
I found it, I read it, I digested it. It turns out you reading fairy tale books for children is like an amount of reading that I am ready to commit to. It literally is just like a 5-minute children's tale. I thought it was gonna be like a whole like story thing, like old timey stories.
No,
where they
no,
were
no.
like,
Mhm.
and then he went to Sicily, and there he met a man who was a cobbler, and he was like, "Wow, you've got cute little paws. I love them so much. I'd be ashamed if anything happened to him."
That's
I
a,
mean,
a
like-
frightening cobbler.
In total fairness, picture you're a
Fixes all his
cobbler
problems with shoes.
in like medieval times, whenever the Renaissance, I'm not
Mhm.
sure, and a little cat that talks comes up to you and asks for shoes.
Yeah.
How could you say no?
Exactly. You
Uh-huh.
wouldn't. I wouldn't. And so that's why all my cats wear Generation 1 Air Jordans. But we're gonna talk about that one a little bit too. And there's some other inspiration for Puss in Boots, if you can believe. But we'll cross that bridge when we
What?
come to it. I know. It's actually Spy Kids is a pretty heavy influence.
Oh
on
my
them,
gosh,
but
my
we'll get there.
kids.
All right, let us talk about the origin of El Gato in the shoes. I don't remember the
El
Italian.
Shuo.
El Shuo. We are opening the story in a, let's call it like Wild West, kind of like Californian area. You've got your buttes and your tumbleweeds and your pueblo cities that are few and far between. And there's a little basket that is being carried on the wind. What could it possibly be? Why, it's a little kitten.
Oh,
A little orange tabby who has been abandoned. And as he says in his voiceover, he has no madre, and he has no leche.
No.
It's true. But it's all right, because from these humble beginnings, this basket of God's greatest gift is swept up onto the doorstep conveniently of an orphanage, which is good because that's what he is, who is run by a senora named Imelda, who has taken in a bunch of other fairy tale, I guess, orphans. I didn't know these, but little boy Blue is there. He is blue and he blows a horn. So
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
that's his character arc. In the background, you can see Bo Peep and her sheep are just hanging about. She has no speaking role.
Interesting.
But the other big fairy tale, I guess, orphan that we're going to meet today is one Humpty Dumpty, who is voiced by Zach Galifianakis and is a very scary looking portrayal of Humpty Dumpty.
Okay,
All right.
for a hot second, I thought you were talking about the original Puss in Boots, like
I
the
was
fairy
not
tale,
talking
and
about
then
this.
we said voiced
No,
by Zach
this is-
Galifianakis, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
it's-
This is
This-
from the movie.
Yeah,
I don't
this
think
is-
there's not a cinematic universe of fairy tales where they all like cross
yeah. I was
over.
like, I was like, whoa, wait a second, those
But
did
yeah,
not
That-
exist.
That would be
This-
really good.
This is a bit of an aside, I guess, but what is Zach Galifianakis doing nowadays?
He
What
just
happened to
shows
that
up-
boy?
He's done a lot of speaking. He's done a lot of voice roles at this point. So I guess people just really like his voice. He was in that Yeti movie we saw. Remember,
Yeah.
Lizzie?
I can't remember what that's called.
It's called Squatched. He was
It's
a
definitely not called
Sasquatch.
that.
He was a Sasquatch who was looking
It's
for
called
his Yeti
Missing
cousins.
Link.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's by-
okay.
it's by Leica Animation.
Yeah, sure,
Stop
sure.
motion.
Yeah,
So just does voice roles now, I guess.
I remember he was just like in those 3 Las Vegas movies, and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, Zach Galifianakis."
The Hangover.
Yeah, and now I like have not seen him since.
Yeah, because he does voice. I feel like a lot of actors like start doing voice roles, and they're like, "Wait, this rules! I don't have to go on set or like
And you
cut
get paid about
water
the
out
same.
of my diet for 2 days at a time to go
Yeah,
onto
you
set,
c-
and I don't have to interact with as many Hollywood assholes. Like this rules."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get paid about the same if you're a famous actor who is doing
Yeah,
voice roles.
I mean, yes, that is an
Exactly.
asterisk next to it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I would love that job. Hey, if anyone's looking for a voice actor, I can do all sorts. You're gonna hear a lot of me impersonating a Spanish man. so
You're gonna
that'll be
hear
fun for all
some
us.
of the best
But
voice
I
acting.
wanna
Featuring the
point
line
out-
a little bit.
I want to point out that Spain is a dominant. It's a white country, so I'm doing an impersonation of a white guy, basically.
Oh, interesting.
I don't
interesting.
think that me doing an impersonation of some Iberian dude is problematic. All right.
The number of like asterisks we're throwing up here is
I
it's
just
fine.
want
It's
it to
fine.
be known because I can't help myself. I love doing Antonio Banderas' voice. It's
All right.
real good.
All right.
All right. So what do we know about Humpty Dumpty? Well, obviously he
He
is.
fell off a wall.
Well, he didn't yet. That's it's.
Okay. Well, then
They-
I know
they-
nothing about Humpty Dumpty.
I don't know. His
Well,
egg.
he had a great fall. It was a really good autumn for him. That's a funny joke, CJ. Good job. It was like he has a great fall.
I
He
get
had a
it.
great fall. Hey, how was your autumnal season? That was great. I'm Humpty.
Mm,
Don't worry, I'll add and laugh later, probably if I remember.
I also want to, for the record, I've definitely seen this movie, but my recollection of it is about close to zero.
I think the most notable part about it is that Humpty Dumpty is like a egg shaped, like in the Shrek style of animation.
I remembered him.
But he's got just like such a detailed, vivid human face on
He
his
really
big body.
does. It's a little unsettling.
It's really kind of strange. It's very emotive. I'll give them that, but it's like it's hard to look at. Anyway, Humpty Dumpty is obsessed with procuring magic beans because he wants to go up into the giant land, a la Jack and the Beanstalk, and get some golden eggs. I guess because he wants money because he's an orphan, but he's like really specific about this. I guess because he is an egg,
yeah.
so maybe that appeals to him.
He's secretly looking for his bride. I would like to marry a
Ah.
golden egg.
It's really
Oh.
funny. Everyone calls him Huevo through the whole movie. It's very good. But
Well,
yeah, they're all like I said
They're
like
in Spain.
California, but it's like, like as we'll talk about later, the term native Californian is used a lot in pop culture when it really means like the Spanish settlers who had sex with the natives and became like Californian Spaniards, but it's that kind of backdrop.
we
we're
talked
working
about
with.
this in Scooby Doo. to
Yeah,
Scooby-Doo
we
and the
we
Sun.
did.
Yeah, you're right. That's a little throwback. That's why you're here, Lizzie, because it all
Okay,
ties
that's the
back.
connection.
That's
All right.
all. It all comes together.
I thought it was for my expertise. All right.
It's for a lot of things.
I mean,
anyway,
this is part of that expertise, right? Is
It's true. With things consults list things Lizzie knows about, adds California kinda, but old timey version.
through media.
California, old timey
that's
California
that
via
part of
media.
Scooby Doo where they talked about this?
All right. So Humpty Dumpty wants to find magic beans, and he's a bit of a loner, but he's also an inventive little boy for some reason. He's like a Leonardo da Vinci, but a egg. So he's inventing all these contraptions, and he's running experiments on all the beans he can find to see if any of them are magic beans. But one day when Puss shows up, Humpty stands up for Puss as little kids. He's like, "Hey, little boy Blue, stop bullying Puss in Boots." Right now, he's just a cat. He doesn't have a name yet. But
Right, he has no boots, therefore he is just
Right.
Puss.
exactly.
Puss.
Well, he gets the name Puss from Humpty Dumpty because at first Puss
Because-
can't speak.
Oh.
human tongue.
because he wasn't up for that fight with little boy Blue. So he's like, your name is Puss now.
No, he's like, "I'm gonna name you Whiskers," and he's like, "No," and he's like, "Alejandro." He's like, "No." It's Puss. He does that thing where they like kind of back into their name.
Yeah.
But so they over the course of their young childhood they become brothers, deep friends for life, etc. And they did the bold choice of a lot of times during backstories they will give the character like a young child voice to emulate them being a child. They don't do that with Puss. He goes straight from meowing to being like, "Yes, I am Puss in Boots."
Oh,
So,
that's
I
yeah,
like
that's way
that
better.
actually.
He never has like a child voice. He only ever has the voice of adult Antonio Banderas
Yeah, that's
and
way
a
better.
cat meow. But the two of them go around. They become troublemakers in the city. They're stealing beans, and they're rubbing up against the law. And Humpty X as the brains, and Puss is like the skill. He's got cat's grace and nimble fingers.
Mhm.
And so the two of them keep getting into trouble with the Commandante, which is, I guess, like the commander of the guard,
Mhm.
played by Guillermo del Toro. So
yeah.
he's in this movie, and I guess is actually in like a lot of the Puss in Boots stuff. I think he just likes Puss in Boots, so pretty good.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Sure.
But one day, Puss is kind of like, "I don't like getting the Commandante upset with us. He keeps talking to our madre, and it makes her sad. And I wanna be a good cat for her." And Humpty Dumpty's like, "We don't owe this place anything. This sucks. This isn't our home. We should do whatever we want." But through a bunch of weird accidents, a bull is unleashed into the town square and starts raging around. And Puss, who sees that the bull is charging towards an elderly woman, springs into action
my
on
gosh.
instinct and takes down the bull right in front of her. And she is saved. And it turns out that this is the madre of the Commandante. And everyone
Oh.
saw him. They said, "Oh, you saved the madre of the Commandante." And then the bull goes, "You saved the madre of the Commandante." and then the Commandante
For
comes
me.
out and he says, "Puss, you are a hero now." And he's like, "Oh, this is cool. This is cool." And then everyone starts cheering about how great he is. And then his madre gives him a pair of boots because she says, "These are the boots of a hero." And then
They're
and-
cat sized though,
Puss-
because I
Uh-huh.
think they'll be very small.
And Puss is like, "I don't know what I was trying to figure out why anyone gave him boots at all." And the answer is his mom gave him the boots because they are boots for a hero, and he doesn't really know why she gave him shoes. But
Okay.
she did.
I really like the idea of like we open Legend of Zelda and Link is just like sitting there in his regular garb and his grandma goes, "Son, it's time for you to put on the cowl of the true hero, by which I mean these shoes here."
We got you these tiny boots. They're very
That's-
cute.
Got you these cute little boots for your kitty boy.
And that's the hero outfit.
So he is now Puss in Boots, the hero. And he really likes this, but Humpty does not. Humpty is like, this is unacceptable. We're supposed to be, looking out for us. And now all you care about is the city and the people. But what about me?
Is Humpty Dumpty a narcissist?
Yeah, he is. And he's like, he gets this like fixation that he needs to be rich, and like get out of this little dust bowl. So he really doesn't like it there. And so he's willing to do whatever it takes. But he is trying to get he also cares for his little brother Puss, though. He's sad that he's, being a hero instead of being his brother now. And so he hatches a scheme. You see what I did there?
Thank you, CJ.
Oh.
Yeah, like
It's all right. You're allowed to move on now, but that was really good. Thank you.
And then he tricks Puss into helping him rob a bank. And the city is like,
how does that work?
It was very contrived, but it's the middle of the night, and Humpty says that he needs help getting out of the city because he wants to leave. And then he's like, okay, I'll help you get out of the city. And so he helps Humpty scale the wall of the city. But then as he helps him over the wall and is contemplating his brother leaving, the fog lifts on a placard that is right next to him, and it says, "The bank." And then he says, "Oh no." And then Humpty throws a sack of gold over the wall into the cart that they were in, and then they gallop off, and now he's a bank robber.
Oh.
So it's the oldest trick in the book.
That really sounds like
bank.
Really sounds like Humpty maybe didn't need Puss's help at all. Maybe just needed, like a grappling hook, and he was all set.
Well, a part of it was to just get him into the same boat as him again. Like he was trying to, bring him down to his level or whatever. So the two of them gallop off. They run past the Commandante, and he's like, "Oh, you are an outlaw now, Humpty and Puss in Boots. This is you've gone too far this time," or however Guillermo del Toro sounds. And then their thing crashes, their wagon crashes, and all of the money that they stole fall into the river. And then Puss also falls into the river, and Humpty doesn't fall into the river. It's like an ironic twist.
He has no great fall.
He did not fall. Well, he has a fall from grace.
From grace, yeah. So a fall from grace, but not a great fall.
Like
a great fall.
Like an Oedipus fall. Like how.
Well,
I guess
that's a very different kind of fall.
I think well, he's like I guess Puss has like an Oedipus fall where he's like the hero. You can only fall so far.
Well, but cats always land on their feet, so it's okay.
He says no. He says in the movie that's a myth made up by dogs so that they could throw him around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, they really covered everything.
They did. You thought you could sneak one past me, but I watched the movie. I know what happened.
Okay.
So Puss spends like 15 years just like going around, and no, he spent 7 years. Sorry, it's 35 years in cat years, but it's 7 years wandering around, being an outlaw. He's wanted by his town because he basically threw all of their money into a river, which is not good for a town's economy. And he is, he's just listlessly going from place to place. All of this flashback happens in the middle of the movie. I'm just going chronologically. Like the movie opens with Puss just having had intercourse with a white cat that is I guess they did it while her owner was asleep, and then he sneaks out, and then the owner's like, "Get out of here, you darn cat!" And then he's like,
"Is this a children's movie?"
Yeah, radical.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then she's like, meow, 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 meow. She only speaks in mouse. That thing that I hate where like one animal is having sex with another animal, even though the other animal only speaks animal, but like the other animal speaks the human tongue.
He said, "Oh, Jess, you like that? Meow, 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 meow."
Yeah, it was basically like that. So very good in general, I would say. But he's going around listlessly until he hears about a big score he can get in town. Jack and Jill apparently have some magic beans. And he's like,
Oh.
there are no such thing as magic beans. But he goes and checks. And indeed, Jack and Jill are in possession of the magic beans. So this rendition of Jack and Jill, they are very
Beans.
large, powerful man and woman.
Oh. Beans,
They
beans,
are
the magical
married,
fruit?
which I thought they were siblings, but I guess thinking back on the nursery rhyme, there's nothing to suggest that. So they're married to each other, and I
Huh.
guess
Good.
Jack wants to have a baby, and Jill doesn't want to because
Oh,
it would put a hamper in their thieving lifestyle. They're outlaws. Is their
oh,
is the thing.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Uh,
I mean, that's very sweet. I'm sorry that they're having those kind of marital issues. That's
Well, they're working
always-
through it. They have pets. They have pet wild boars as kind of like a substitute, and they
It's
treat
very
them like
specific.
babies.
Oh my
So
god,
that's
you're
fun.
just talking about our friends now.
Yeah, it's all just the coping mechanisms of like the next generation of people who can't
Yeah,
afford to.
Yeah.
like,
All right,
really
we
have
need to move
actual
on from this bit right about now.
But Puss sees that they do have magic beans, so he tries to steal them. But something goes wrong during the heist because there's another kitty cat who's trying to heist the same beans at the same time. Even
What?
a masked kitty cat with little black and white spots, just like my little kitty cats. They're cute. You rub them on their belly.
Oh.
But this mysterious masked bandit cat, who also wears boots, by the way, which, like, at that point, are you really Puss in Boots, or are you just another cat who wears shoes?
Well, I mean, her full title is Kitty Softpaws in Boots, but she usually that's a bit too long.
We don't know that yet, Ethan.
Oh.
She's ripping off his style.
Yeah, no, he does the whole thing where he thinks that she's a man, and then they bungle the thieving, and then they go back to a cat bar that's called the Glitter Bar, but the G flickers on and off, so it's a litter bar. It's very funny. And then he does a dance battle with the other cat, and then it's revealed that she's a lady, and her name is Kitty Softpaws because she's got the softest paws in the biz. You can't even tell when she steals stuff from you, and her running gag is she just steals stuff off of Puss the whole time, like off screen. So like he'll just lose his hat, and then she'll be wearing it. So that's a good bit. It goes on a lot, but it's funny.
That's the bit that your D&D rogue does. That's really
Right.
funny. Session 1, and then
Yeah.
you say,
And then
"Please
it's
stop
like, okay,
doing
we
that."
get it. You can steal things whenever you want. I understand.
Maybe I should take inspiration from this because I play a Tabaxi rogue.
No,
That's
thank you.
true. Well,
I
you
would
might
prefer if
find
you-
that this rogue has a sad backstory,
Oh.
but we'll get there soon.
Why is it a rogue with a sad backstory? Impossible.
Anyway, turns out that Kitty Softpaws was working for Humpty Dumpty. What? He's back.
What?
And he wants them beans. And he says, listen, Puss, I need your skills to get the beans back. We had a tumultuous past, but I miss my bro. And I want us to all work together to get the beans and then go get the treasure so we can get some golden eggs. What do you say, buddy? And he's like, no, I will never work with you again, brother. And then he does this whole sad backstory thing, and then Kitty Softpaws is go, oh, it would be so hot and sexy, muy guapo of you to come and steal these beans with us. And he goes,
Word
okay,
for word?
okay, I will steal the beans. No, she doesn't say muy guapo. That's just my favorite part of High School Musical.
It's just
Uh,
she just talks about how it would really get her hot
Whoa,
and
what a-
bothered.
What a pull.
Thank you. I'm always thinking about that movie. So they all agree to work together, and they have a chase scene with Jack and Jill. They get the beans by all working together. Humpty Dumpty made a flying, like, horse-drawn carriage, and so they fly
Okay.
off a cliff, and then it turns into like a paraglider.
What do the
that
horses
Da Vinci
do?
would make. There's a little crane that pulls the horse into the wagon as it turns into airplane mode, so that the horse becomes a passenger of the airplane as it's
God, they
flying.
thought of
It's
everything.
very good, actually.
Wow.
So they plant the beans, and whoa, what do you know? Big beanstalk goes up into the sky. They go to the giant realm, do another heist There is no giant. The giant was killed by Jack in Jack and the Beanstalk, which is not the same Jack as Jack and Jill. I thought they were going to cross that over at first, but it's not true. Two different Jacks. But
Jack didn't take the golden goose?
Apparently not.
Okay.
There's more to be revealed.
So that at that point it's just homicide, Jack. Like,
but as well, yeah. I mean, okay. So is it better if he steals? From the corpse, then?
And then like I understand like it's a fucking robbery at that point. Like his purpose makes sense. If he didn't steal the golden goose, then he just went up into the clouds, killed a guy, and left.
I think technically the fall killed the giant as he was chasing.
Okay, all right.
That's what we think. We don't know about the Shrek.
I think technically just the bullets out of the gun is what killed him.
That's different. You know it. Anyway, they do another heist. This is a kind of a heist movie. There, as Humpty Dumpty says, there's a creature here that guards the golden goose, a giant monster. So they have to avoid the giant monster and get the golden goose and bring it out, and it will lay golden eggs for them. Awesome. Also, at this point, Humpty Dumpty dresses up as a golden egg. He's wearing like a golden spandex morph suit. He's like, I will blend in, which never comes up. So
okay.
It's not like they look at him and they're like, oh, he's a golden egg.
He just wanted to.
He just wanted to, yeah.
Yeah. No, he's got some kind of weird obsession with golden eggs.
He's a little freak. But they avoid the monster and they find a little, I guess, cat-sized chick. It's about the same size as they are. That is just shitting out golden eggs. And they're like, this is it, baby. And so they yoink it and they escape the castle. They come back down and then they chop down the giant beanstalk. And nice, successful heist. Great job.
Movie over. What?
Except even the beanstalk falling down alerts Jack and Jill to their location, and they come and they steal the golden gosling.
Oh.
And they hijack it out of there, and they don't kill Puss in Boots for some reason. They just leave him out in the desert for the buzzards to pick away at him. And it looks, he's in his lowest point now. Kitty Softpaws is nowhere to be seen. She was giving him all like lovey-dovey eyes, but then she got captured or taken off or something. He's just all alone now again. So he's like, shit. And so he wanders the desert, and what does he find? It's his hometown. He's like right next to it, conveniently.
Convenient?
Except he's still a wanted cat. So he's got to go into town. He's trying to save Humpty Dumpty from Jack and Jill because he is pretty sure that his boys got kidnapped. But he discovers it was a plot all along. He's been double-crossed. Humpty Dumpty was working with Kitty Softpaws and Jack and Jill and pretty much everyone in the movie so far because, as Humpty Dumpty pointed out, he says, I was always there, Puss in Boots. And then it flashes back to all the different scenes in the story, which is the only part of this movie that made me laugh out loud for like a full minute. But it like goes back to all of the different set pieces in the story. And then Humpty Dumpty is just like reveals himself from behind a thing. Like after he was done plowing that white cat, he just like sits up from the bed behind the owner while he was sleeping there. And he was in like a bar and he just like turns around from the bar and has just like wearing a fake mustache. And then he was like in the heist where Jack and Jill were, but he was hiding under Jill's skirt the whole time.
Wasn't he dressed as a cat in one?
Yeah, he was at the cat bar playing a guitar and dressed as a cat.
I was that white cat from the beginning of the movie, Puss. That was me.
That was me. You fucked me, Puss in Boots.
But is this like a vengeance thing or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's like, I didn't care about the money at this point, Puss in Boots. I wanted revenge because you betrayed me and they threw me in jail when you abandoned me here in the city. You didn't help me escape. And now I hate you, and my plan has come to fruition. And the white cat that fucked him was there, and she has a golden egg too.
Oh.
They're divvying out the golden eggs to everyone who was party to this plot.
Okay.
So does he have anything worse set up for Puss in Boots, or is this because usually these plans like culminate in killing the person, right? But it kind of just seems like he's like, I did a 10-year-long plot so that we would do a heist together, but you wouldn't get money.
No, I mean, that is part of it. And then also because he revealed all this in their hometown, then the Commandante shows up and then he goes, "Oh, Puss, I'm going to put you in jail for a long time because you're an outlaw."
It is me, Antonio Banderas. I am speaking to you, Antonio Banderas.
No, it's Guillermo del Toro, who does kind of sound like that too, but he is actually from Mexico and not from Spain. But he is... So Puss in Boots is getting thrown in jail, and then Humpty Dumpty's like, I caught the outlaw, and I got a golden goose that lays golden eggs for everyone, so I have fixed our economy by evenly distributing a golden egg to all of the citizens, thus fixing the economy. And everyone's...
Is that how it works?
Everyone's super cool with that. Well, presumably you could spend that money in other towns, and that would be good, but yeah, I mean... The implications of inflation vis-a-vis a magical gold laying goose remains to be seen. But in any case, Puss is in jail now, where there's a crazy old man, and he's like, you must be Puss in Boots. I guess old Humpty Dumpty had his way with you. And he's like, what are you talking about?
Had his way.
And this
I was that white cat. I had my way with you.
No, he says, my name is Andy Beanstalk, but my friends call me Jack. And
what?
What? Like, okay. Because Humpty Dumpty went to jail at the beginning, if you remember, as kids, where he met Andy Beanstalk, who was also in jail. And Andy Beanstalk had himself a couple of magical beans because Humpty Dumpty had the beans all along from the get-go, Ethan.
What?
He
He
stole the beans from Andy Beanstalk, aka Jack.
So the dude was like obsessed for his whole childhood with finding these magical beans. And they were in the same podunk town, like just in jail with Andy this whole time.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, you didn't think to look there.
Interesting. Okay.
I guess to be fair, if they were just like,
they were nowhere, there wouldn't be any stories about them.
If this guy told me he was Andy, I would not assume he had anything to do with beans.
Yeah. Well, I just don't know why his name is Andy Beanstalk and his friends call him Jack.
Yeah, lots of questions.
There's a lot of questions here, but this is the moment. It was that moment when Humpty's plan went from getting magic eggs to vengeance.
Okay.
And so all of this is to say that also Andy Beanstalk went to jail because he sold the family cow to, buy the beans. That's from the classic fairy tale.
Yes.
But he didn't say which family's cow it was, so he got 8 to 10 for stealing another family's cow and selling them for beans.
Okay.
So that's why he's in jail.
That's
by the
a
way.
lot of time for
It
that.
is a lot for cow theft, though. I guess in old timey days, a cow is like, that's like $20 million.
In old timey days, they'd chop off your hands.
Yeah, well, we're not that old, and we're in California. We're not in, the place that Aladdin lives in. So,
What
Okay,
also
this
was
feels-
Andy
okay.
was Andy Beanstalk white?
what?
Was
I was
it
gonna
was,
say, we're getting
was
a
Andy
little-
Beanstalk white? Because
Yeah.
if so, of course they're not going to string him up for that. It's
Oh,
fine.
We're
that's-
getting
yeah,
a
that's
little
true.
in the
There's slap
in the
on the
weeds
wrist.
here.
Yeah, what are we talking about? Oh, right. Humpty Dumpty got his revenge. But Key Soft Paws is like, no, I've fallen in love with you, Puss in Boots. I'm gonna help you break out of jail. And but the one thing that Andy Beanstalk reveals, because he is also broken out of jail in the same jailbreak, and he's like, that's great, I need to get out of here because that giant monster that guards the golden gosling is gonna be coming for that golden gosling, and I don't want to be in the town when she comes. And they're like, what are you talking about, Andy Beanstalk? And he goes, Oh, don't you know the monster what guards the golden gosling is Mother Goose? It's her Mother Goose.
Oh,
And she's going to want to get her little duckling back.
geese are really scary.
Right. And so Andy Beanstalk fucking boogies out of town, but Puss and Kitty Softpaws decide that they need to return the golden gosling to its Mother Goose to save the town, and they endeavor to do this. Also, I said Kitty Softpaws has a sad backstory. She has really soft paws because she was declawed by her owner for scratching up stuff when she was a baby.
Oh,
And so she doesn't have claws anymore, which is a detriment to her in many ways because these thief cats use their claws to pick locks and climb things, so it's hard for her to do that.
it is a good PSA that you shouldn't declaw your cats.
You shouldn't declaw your cats.
It's
That's
like
not
if you
good
cut
for them.
off the very last tip of like each finger.
The
But she
like the
rolled
last
with-
digit of each finger.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she rolled with it, and she became a world-renowned thief who can pickpocket anyone, so it's pretty good. But the two of them fall in love, and they all, work together to save the city, and Humpty Dumpty has his retribution arc, and he's like, I doomed our hometown, and Puss is like, no, but you can save it, because you're a creative little egg. And then they do that, but at the end, Humpty Dumpty indeed has a great fall. At the last, he sacrifices himself to give the golden goose back to its mother, and when he falls, he shatters, bafflingly revealing a golden egg inside of him. So I guess he was a golden egg that
So
had
he
gained
did want to get
sentience.
eggs just to fuck them.
It's entirely possible. Listen, I don't know. And then the mother goose takes her baby goose and the golden egg, which shattered out of Humpty Dumpty, and flies back into the sky.
So
And then in the post-credits scene where everyone's singing and dancing, he is alive again in the sky now. So I don't know. Maybe he was reborn.
I was gonna say, is something gonna hatch out of that then? And it's
I
just
don't know.
like him.
Is it eggs? Is it Humpty Dumpty's all the way down? I don't know. I don't know if Humpty Dumpty is as a phoenix, and whenever one shatters, they cannot put him back together again because he simply reforms days later as himself again. I don't know.
I don't like this.
It's very scary. And I'm very scared of Humpty Dumpty. But in the end, we get the legend of Puss in Boots, who during all the confusion, the city folk all see him saving them.
Yeah,
Puss in
we're
Boots.
cool now.
Well, the city folks see Puss in Boots saving them, but the commandant only sees him like stealing the golden egg goose and like wreaking havoc on the town with a giant goose, and he's like, "You are an outlaw, Puss in Boots." So that's how he gets his title as sort of like outlaw but man of the people kind of thing.
Sure.
So he's a rogue. He works for himself, but he's got a good heart, and he works for the people. Oh, he's got a good heart and he works for the people. CJ, are you talking about the Netflix series, The Puss in Boots, Adventures of Puss in Boots?
Are you?
No,
Oh,
I'm not going to talk about that
Oh,
because I
okay.
was going to watch it and then talk about it, but it was 6 seasons long, and I was like,
Oh
I
my
am
God.
not
What?
watching. I am not watching 6 seasons of Puss in Boots, Adventure of Puss in Boots. But
it
I
must
watched
have been
enough.
very successful.
I watched enough to know that apparently he's a magic spell determined he has a good heart, but he is kind of wayward sometimes. But it doesn't matter because I checked the synopsis for the whole show, and at the end of the show, he goes into a time portal that resets all of the events so that they never happen, but only he can remember what happened. So he has the memory of an alternate
Oh.
life that he lived on a Netflix TV series, but it is not canon to the mainline plot, so we don't have to talk about it. So don't at me.
What
If-
if like
If we
What
have
every
10
show did
people, if we have 10 people at him, I would like you guys to force CJ to watch this whole 6-season nonsense.
That feels
Peop-
like an achievable goal, although I would be very sad if I had to do that.
Oh, that's the best
I-
part.
I like the loophole that you can get out of all of the lore you've created for a series by at the end being like, and time portal. Boom.
I mean,
it
we-
didn't happen.
Yeah.
We went over this exact thing with Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
a good way to write your franchise's spin-off.
Well, it's a way. I don't know if it's a good way.
All right, we have to keep going, okay? Puss in Boots does other adventures, but what we know about him is he is a rakish rogue
Rakish.
who works for the people. No, he's rakish specifically. But
Okay.
he's a man of the people. And then we don't see him again until the events of Shrek 2. That's right.
Or when we first saw him.
Our first actual in IRL seeing of Puss in Boots. Everyone's favorite character from that movie, and the reason why he got so many spin-offs, because he's a generally fun character.
Very
I
good
enjoyed
character.
watching his movies. But he is the reasoning that was given on the wiki, and it's good enough for me, so I'll take it, because there's no direct link from the end of the movie to Shrek 2,
Sure.
but he's a bounty hunter trying to hunt the bounty on Shrek. So the idea is he's still a man of the people, right? Because he's like a bounty hunter, so he's trying to get outlaws, but he still works for money, so bounty hunter kind of fits into all that. But then, as we all know from the Shrek movie, they engage in combat. Here's something that really annoys me, and we'll start to bring in all the parallels with Zorro, because Puss in Boots is very heavily inspired by Zorro. But Zorro writes a big Z on people with his sword. And it's like, Zorro's here, like everyone knows that. But Puss always writes a big P in people for Puss, which is funny. But then the little inside of the P never falls out. It always just dangles there. But it would, because it's completely detached from the rest of the thing that you just cut it out of. So, like, the Zorro, like the opening to the Zorro movie is like a flag waving, and then they go, and then the flag's still waving, but it says Z. They do the same thing with the Puss symbol in one of the shots, where there's like cloth waving, and then he goes, and he writes a big P in it, but it keeps waving, but the P would fall out. Like the middle of the P would fall out from the center. It's infuriating.
I see what you mean.
I fucking hate it.
All right. As long as we're talking about things I hated from Shrek 2, I had two things that were like
What
really
did you
weirded
hate
me
from the
out.
Perfect
It's like
movie.
a perfect media, but yeah, okay,
So-
go ahead. Tell us what you hate about Shrek 2.
So the first one is that they did like all of this build up for like Puss in Boots, and then they have a fight and Shrek like easily beats him, like kind of thing, right? And
Yeah.
Puss is like, "Oh, now I will work for you."
Yeah, he owes him a life debt.
Yeah, I like was so expecting, and I guess I was coming off of like seeing his media where he's, more tricksy and such, that like this was a purposeful thing that he was doing to like gain Shrek's trust. And Donkey even says like, "Oh, we can't trust this guy," and it's like, no, he just
Very
immediately
good.
failed and
I
is
think-
forever.
Very good Eddie Murphy impersonation.
Hey,
I-
Shrek. Hey, Shrek. This is crazy, right?
I like that one better.
I disagree, because it was all just set up to be a joke. He didn't defeat him in combat. He had to stop because he had a hairball, and then
And he just picks him up.
Shrek
by the
just
nape
picked him
of
up
his neck.
because he's a huge ogre.
Yeah, I think
It was
it's
very ridiculous.
I think what it is Puss realizes that Shrek is actually like a good guy. Like you see ogre, that's the whole plot of the movies, right? You see ogre and it's like, oh, bad guy. But then he realized that he's actually a good guy who's just fighting for his señorita. And
Yes.
so I guess
All
it's
right,
his
and
señora at that point.
Before
And then
before we move
he-
on, though, I have part number 2.
Oh.
I forgot how like all early 2000s animated movies ended with a song and dance for no
Yeah.
reason that had nothing to
He's
do with
into
anything.
superstition.
What do you mean for
Black
no
cats and
reason?
voodoo dolls.
It's a celebration.
It's just, all right, we have finished the plot. Let's dance.
Yeah. Then I saw
Fucking
her
love- I jammed out
face.
to that. It's
Exactly.
so
I mean,
I'm a believer.
so good.
Also, Shrek 2, ending with what's the song?
it's super.
What's it called? It's not Superstition.
It's not called Superstition.
No. She's into
That's what I was just
superstition,
that's what I was just doing.
black cats and voodoo dolls.
Upside
Living La Vida
inside
Loca.
out.
Yeah,
Living
La Vida Loca. Yeah, duh.
Should push
See,
and
like,
pull
two
you down.
Bangers in a row.
Living la
How,
vida
like
loca.
Shrek 2 is
so-
better
It's
than
got
the
Spanish
first one.
in it, get it?
It's so weird, and
It's
I
so good.
remember
No,
that was the thing at the time, but like going back
Ethan's
now,
being like, here's two things that annoy me about it. One is how it was really funny and good, and two is how it fucking jammed and made my ass wiggle. Yeah,
I was gonna
alright.
say that's Bollywood, baby. That's what they
Yeah,
do.
that
And
rules.
every time I see a Bollywood movie that has a big song and dance at the end, I think every movie
Yeah,
should
you're
end
wrong.
like
Ethan,
this.
you're not only wrong on this one, you're so outnumbered and outmatched. It's crazy.
I
It's
mean,
crazy. It's
I'm
loco.
I'm certainly outnumbered.
Yeah. Well, we all know what happens in Shrek 2. He fights with Shrek. He learns to work together with them instead, and then he does the kitty eyes, which he learned from when he was a kid. That happened in the backstory, which doesn't really matter because he's a
Okay.
cat. He can just do that. And that's when he becomes lifelong
Movie
friends
history.
with Shrek. Yeah, he appears in the rest of the movies as well. He's in Shrek 3, where he's kind of an uncle to the dragon donkey abomination hybrids. And he's also just kind of a good bud that Shrek has that helps him out in his time of need, because in Shrek 3 Fiona's pregnant and Shrek's like, oh God, I don't know what to do, and they want me to rule the kingdom because the king's old and he's gonna die, and I don't want to do all that. I just want my swamp. I want my swamp, donkey. Oh, for fuck's sake, donkey. And then Donkey's
Very
like,
good.
damn, Shrek, you should find King Arthur. And then they do that, I guess. But then
Shrek
Puss
3
is,
was not very good.
but then Puss is there and he's like,
unfortunately.
oh, I will help you in your quest to find the King Arthur. And then they do that. And that's
Played
the
by
plot.
Justin Timberlake.
Yeah, it's forgettable.
Which is very
And then-
funny because in Shrek 2, in Fiona's old bedroom, she has a poster
Yeah.
that says Sir Justin.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
obviously Justin Timberlake.
It's great. And then in the fourth one, he is also there. Puss is also there because Shrek has his kids now, and he's kind of like an uncle to Shrek's kids. And he's telling them about all the glory days stories about him and his dad doing adventures and stuff. And then in that one, Shrek makes a wish to never have he wishes that he had a simple life back, which means he doesn't have his wife or children. And then they do like a reverse It's a Wonderful Life, where he just gets to live his life as if no one's ever, as if he was still the old Shrek from the first one. But then it turns out to be bad overall. And so
And Puss in the fourth one, in the alternate timeline, is like Fiona's pet cat.
yeah, and then he gets
Which-
he's like a chubby
No
house
explanation
cat.
to how he got there.
Right. Well, presumably the same kind of thing. He was probably sent to kill her and then was easily outclassed again
he's
by
just-
an ogre.
He's a big, tubby little
Yeah,
house
he's a little
kitty.
lap cap, and he's like, "Oh, I have not swung a sword in many a moons."
That
but-
clip of him, like coming down the cat tree,
Yeah.
like really slowly, scratching down the way.
But that's also an alternate timeline because that wish gets unwished at the end of the movie, and then it all goes back to normal. So technically, from Puss's perspective, that never happened. So another example. I looked up a timeline for Puss in Boots, and there's like several branches where it's just like, this is an alternate timeline that is undone. This is an alternate timeline that never happens. And I'm like,
That's
great.
franchise,
This makes it
baby.
so easy for me, baby.
Amazing.
But that is him and Shrek. And then of course we get to the current day, the movie that we all saw. I don't want to spoil it in case people haven't seen it or want to go see it because it is fairly new and has come out. But
You should see it because it is very good.
It is great.
Frankly, yeah, I'm excited to see this movie again
Yeah.
sometime.
Oh yeah, for sure. The animation is top notch. The first movie is not even Shrek level in its because it was supposed to be like a direct to DVD movie spinoff. So it's not bad by any stretch, but I would say it's just a little bit under Shrek. But still pretty close.
The style of Shrek.
Right. But like they
But
haven't
not
really
the
got
budget
the
of
fur
Shrek.
textures figured out, like that kind of stuff. But this one's crazy good.
This one
but
is
they went
great.
with a
The
new art
style's
style as
great.
well.
I'm glad that just as an aside, uh bless Into the Spider-Verse for changing things up and making everybody realize they can stylize animation because that's the point.
Yeah.
Not making everything realistic.
Yeah, it looks great. But in case you're wondering, some of the characters, because we hadn't seen any of these movies going into it, so you'll see Kitty Softpaws, you'll see Puss in Boots, and
There are
stories.
small appearances by some Shrek characters as well.
There is a
In flashback, they were walking along a log bridge jauntily as if it were something
some like
akin to
Lion King flashback
Hakuna
where they're just
Matata.
Hakuna Matataing, yeah. But that's everything you need to know about Puss in Boots going into Puss in Boots. I hope you guys do see the movie because it's very good. You don't need children to go see it. I always
It's
feel
worth
weird going to
seeing.
see children's movies, but then when kids like are yelling in the movie theater, I can be like, get the fuck out of here. And then when I'm yelling because it's so funny and I'm just pointing at the screen, popcorn spitting out of my mouth and I'm laughing.
Slapping
like,
his
"What are you-"
thighs together, enjoy.
Yeah, right. Then the kids can't do anything to me because I'm way bigger than them. So if they try to yell at me, I'll just throw them in the trash. So,
Just like when we saw Avatar 2, and I'm sure people were mad at us laughing at a
well,
lot.
then they should
that we
have
weren't-
made the death so silly.
We're laughing at a lot that was
Laughed
not
at
supposed to be
so
funny.
much, but in our defense,
It was
was
stupid.
really funny.
Yeah, CJ has
The anti-recommendation of this episode is Avatar 2
You
to
can
not
skip
see it.
Avatar 2.
So-
It's
right.
so underwhelming.
Yeah, so CJ has been talking about us maybe doing some shorter videos on our off weeks, and please,
Just so
please,
we can rant about hating
Yeah,
Avatar 2.
yeah, we're definitely not going to talk about the lore of Avatar because it's nothing. But
Yeah.
I would love to talk about how much I hate Avatar.
Yeah, we have to keep up on current stuff. So if you want to hear our expert lore
Well-
takes on various things that are kind of more current events,
Fucking
than
stupid.
some of this
The
old
good
lore
news
stuff,
is
let us know.
that Puss in Boots has by far a much higher critic and audience score on Rotten Tomatoes than Avatar 2, and they came out about the same time.
I will
There
say,
we
after
go.
watching the first Puss in Boots movie, it's crazy how good the second one is because they could have just done another one of those, but they didn't, which is like very weird for Hollywood to do. But I don't know. Maybe DreamWorks
Good
is
on them.
kicking it up a notch.
They are everyone. Like I said, everyone looked to Sony coming out of the woodworks with a banger that is Into the Spider-Verse and being like, "Oh yeah, we can stylize an animation and have more fun with it.
All
we
right.
don't have to make Disney copies."
You don't have to, but I mean, Disney doesn't even do that anymore. They just make live action remakes.
They just
of
make
their own stuff.
remakes.
Which are also pretty bad. So I want to take the rest of this episode and talk a little bit about the inspiration for Puss in Boots, both the fairy tale that it comes from, and as we mentioned before, Puss in Boots is very similar, if not an exact carbon copy, in many ways to the famed masked hero Zorro, who was originally a character from a bunch of like pulp comic style stuff back in the 1920s, I want to say.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
a lot of people cite Zorro as the inspiration for a lot of Batman's behaviors.
Mhm.
And so Zorro was, I guess, by far a way more influential guy, both of whom, Puss and Zorro, played by Antonio Banderas at some point. So
I'd be curious to know, and I don't know if you know this, but as far as like this is more like movie history, if like Puss in Boots was written in as a character and they imagined they're like, we're gonna do Puss in Boots, but we got to get Antonio Banderas to play him, and it's like a spin-off of Zorro. Or did they put in Puss in Boots and then someone was like, let's cast Antonio Banderas, and they were like, oh, then he should be a parody of Zorro.
that is probably pretty tough to tell.
I mean, I don't know this for sure, but just based on the way that Puss in Boots functions as a character in there, like it has to be a role that was written for
I would assume it was
Antonio.
written for him.
I think that's probably right. I think they said that Antonio Banderas wants to be in the movie. Who do we pull from? Because they pulled Puss in Boots, which, let's be honest, not a very well-known fairy tale character previous to the Shrek movies.
Sure.
I mean, it's a really old Italian story.
I do have CJ had asked me off podcast about, or told me a little bit about the original Puss in Boots fairy tale, and I was like, I know this like by the beat, the story beat, because little me has somehow read this in a book.
Yeah. All right. So before we get too much further, you know what time it is, Ethan? It's game time. People love the games, Ethan. This one has
Did anybody tell you that they love the games, or do you just love the games?
Everyone says they love the games, Ethan. This is gonna be a quick one though, but it's gonna be a good one.
Okay.
I liked the last
This
game.
is a game. I like the
You're
game.
not helping, Lizzie.
I liked having anime waifu and husbandos.
This one.
I was so afraid that entire time. I was gonna go to jail.
This one's gonna be great, and you both can play at the same time. And there's not a great deal of content because the idea was a little tenuous at best. But after telling Lizzie what the idea was, she did give the game a name. So we're going to be playing Gato or Natto. That's right, Ethan. I have accumulated some quotes, and what I want you to tell me, and you guys can take turns answering, was this a quote said by any incarnation of Puss in Boots or any incarnation of Zorro? And then for a bonus point, you can tell me if either of the two, depending on who said it, if it was said by specifically Antonio Banderas playing one of those two characters.
Okay.
All right, you've got it. Let's start out. Let's start out pretty easy, and then I think Ethan should go first because Lizzie knows the Puss in Boots story a little better.
Sure.
So I don't want you to cheat off of her.
Okay.
Okay. Upon being asked and pointing at their sword, do you even know how to use that thing? They respond, yes, the pointy end goes into the other man.
Yes, that is Zorro, and that is the Antonio Banderas Zorro.
Okay, Lizzie, what do you think?
I agree. I think this is Zorro, and
okay,
I will say Antonio Banderas.
Okay, yes, you are both correct. That was from the movie, The Mask of Zorro.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, that's great. You both have 2 points. This is gonna be good. There might be no competition at all.
We'll see.
Here's another quote. When I decided to follow my dream, I had already discarded my life. Is that Puss in Boots or Zorro?
Am I going first again?
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, you have to go first again.
Okay. I feel like that was Puss in Boots, and that would be Antonio also.
Okay, Lizzie?
I'm going to say or Zorro, but not Antonio Banderas.
Oh, Lizzie is correct. That was not Antonio Banderas' Zorro from long ago. That's another 2 points for Lizzie. Ethan, you're at 2 points total. Lizzie with 4. This one's gonna be a little bit different. Good people, if you do not tell the king that the meadow you mow belongs to my lord Marquis of Carabas, you shall be chopped as small as mincemeat.
This one was Puss in Boots, and it was not Antonio.
I'm gonna say it's Zorro, but not Antonio.
Now, this was from the original Puss in Boots story. And yeah, it was not Antonio Banderas because this was like the 1400s. So.
I knew it wasn't Antonio.
You did
can
know it
never
wasn't
say that.
Antonio. Okay, all right. Then you get. Yeah, you're right. You get a point for that. You and me can take my cousin's boat to go out for 2 weeks of fishing and mojitos.
That was Puss in Boots, Antonio Banderas.
I'm gonna be sad if this isn't Puss in Boots, Antonio Banderas.
It is Puss in Boots,
Okay.
Antonio Banderas. This is from Shrek the Third.
The mojitos thing was really what gave it away.
All right, I'll do one final one
All right.
as a not
Okay.
tiebreaker.
Okay.
All right, are you ready?
Yes, I'm so prepared.
Yep.
I am not a fighter. I am a lover. A great lover.
Oh. God, I mean, that does sound like something Antonio would say, but also any Zorro could say that, and also Puss in Boots could say that. Jeez. I am gonna go with Zorro, but not Antonio.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Puss in Boots, Antonio Banderas.
That was Puss in Boots from
Dang.
Antonio
Yeah.
Banderas. That was from the Puss in Boots movie that we just talked through. He said
Nice.
that about Kitty Softpaws.
I was gonna say that sounded kind of familiar to me.
Rough.
Well, Lizzie, you win the Antonio Banderas identification badge. You can put that on your Girl Scout sash right next
Hell
to
yeah. Antonio,
carving cryptids.
I know you well in 2
Mhm.
specific roles.
I'm not gonna lie. I was waiting for you to like throw a curveball. It's like this was Antonio Banderas from Spy Kids.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have one. I didn't think it would be fair though.
It would not have been fair.
No.
No, you were.
Funny.
I wanted to do. Let's see if this curse is anything against my luck. That's from Roronoa Zoro from One Piece. That one.
Okay.
That one was a
Never.
little different.
I have not seen this.
He's
anime.
talking about a cursed sword. in
Oh
One
my
Piece.
god.
I thought doing a One Piece reference might be too deep a cut for our cultured audience, who surely doesn't have the time nor patience to watch through 1,200,000 episodes of anime.
And if you don't have the patience to do that, let us know.
Ethan,
and
I'm
we'll
only
do.
on like episode 800. There's no
Yeah.
way.
You
It'll.
guys,
I mean,
you guys
it would
can't
take.
do One Piece if I can't do Naruto.
We'll do stretch goals for both. How about that? Tweet at Lizzie, LizardxLizard, if you want her to come on and do Naruto. I want to talk about the old Puss in Boots because this shit's wild. All right.
Please.
You mentioned it a little bit briefly, Ethan. And you were talking to me about it, and then I went and read it, and it is bizarre even beyond what you had initially told me. But let me give you a brief synopsis. There are 3 young men, and their father is an old miller who dies, and he leaves.
Great opener.
Yeah.
Yep,
that's the
as old
opener.
millers
That's-
do.
Right. And so he leaves his oldest son the mill. He leaves his second son the ass, and he leaves his third son the cat that lives on the farm. And so the third son goes, well, fucking great.
I got the cat. Cool.
My older 2 brothers can like just put their 2 things together and they have a farm. But I just have a fucking cat. So I can't do anything. This cat, I'm only going to be able to eat it and turn it into a hat. And upon hearing this, the cat's like, whoa, buddy. You don't want to do that.
Wait,
Right.
I'm sorry, CJ. I believe the cat says, "Oh, whoa, buddy."
Oh, whoa, you do not need. Whoa, easy, guy, easy. You do not need to do this. Listen, I know you think you are down on your luck, but all you need to do is to bring me a pair of boots and a satchel, and I will bring you great luck, my master.
And he was like, holy
He's
shit,
like,
the
"Oh,
cat
you fucking
talks.
talking cat. Are you Antonio Banderas? He's like,
Yes.
Yes.
And so the cat's master is like, that's a weird request for boots and a sack. But then he's like, but I have seen my cat play some pretty crazy tricks and catch mice by like faking being dead and then jumping out and getting them. So I know my cat's pretty clever. Maybe I'll go along with this. So he gets the shoemaker to make his cat some fucking shoes and gives him a satchel. And he's like, all right, dude, go get at it. And he's like, oh, thanks, master. I will bring you all of the fortune you need. And so the cat goes out and he does his little play dead trick, and he puts some tasty treats inside of his bag, and then a bunny comes along and jumps in the bag and he snatches up the bunny and he kills it, quote, without remorse. So there's that.
Cool.
And then he brings him to the king, and he's like, oh, my king, my master has sent me to bring you this bunny rabbit so that you can have some of the fair game of his land. And then he's like, oh, thank you very much.
Oh, fucking cat, talking cat. Oh my god.
Oh, he's wearing shoes? Fuck. That's awesome. And then he goes out and he does it again with more and more game, and he keeps bringing the game back. So he's literally just like a cat bringing dead birds to you, but in this case, they're like pretty cool and they like it. And
good dead birds.
Yeah, he's like, this is great. He's like, who's your master, little kitty cat? And he's like, oh, it is the Marquis of Carabas, which is a made up place. Even in this fantasy world, it's like a made up place.
Mhm.
So he's just like making up a fake backstory for his master. And the king's like, oh, he sounds like a pretty good master. That's nice. And then the cat's like, oh, I know that the king's going to come by the river on the morrow. So I have a very cunning plan. Because I'm a cat and I'm very cunning.
Cunning's a word.
And so he's like, master, you need to, he's like, master, you need to take a bath in the river for me, master, on this day. If you do this, if you just listen to me, master, get stripped down past your skivvies and get in the water, and then all of your dreams will come true. And if my cat, who wears boots and talks the human tongue and catches rabbits and stuff, told that to me, I'd be like, yeah, all right, sure, why not? So the master goes, he takes a dip in the river, and then the cat steals his clothes, and then he hides them away. And then he goes, oh, help, my master, he is drowning in the river. And then the king's carriage, which he knew would be coming by that day, stops, and he's like, wait a second, you're the cat. What has that owner, the master of Carabas? And he's like, yes, my master, he is drowning. You must save him. And he's like, oh, guards, go save this guy's master. He's given me all sorts of great gifts, like dead birds and rabbits and stuff.
I wouldn't
and
save him otherwise.
I just love it so much. And so the guards go get it, and he's like, oh, my master, he was descended upon by rogues who stole his clothes, and they tried to drown him. Oh, it was so awful. And the king's like, oh, well, no Marquis of Carabas is gonna walk around naked. Here, have some fine clothes. So he tricks the king very cleverly into giving some nice ass threads to this poor miller's son, right? And then the princess who's riding around with her dad sees this well-dressed man, and he's fit, right? He's got farmer's body.
Yeah, she
he's
maybe
like,
saw him before the clothes.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I see this guy coming out.
And it's a guy who's not her cousin, and she's like, this is hot. And so
a man
even. So the king is like, oh, you have to accompany us. We're just going for a little stroll. And why don't you hang around? And he's, you gave us all these gifts. It's only fair that you have a carriage ride with us. And he's like, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. Thanks. And then the cat
wasn't like, what gifts?
Who doesn't like, yeah. And so the cat runs forward and he's like, listen here, you fucking peasants. You're going to tell the king who comes by that you work for the Marquis of Carabas, okay? And if you don't, I'm gonna fucking cut you to shreds. And they're like, whoa, okay.
Whoa, a fucking talking cat.
Holy shit.
I'd be like, oh, the little cat.
Whatever you say. And
We're a ton of people. What is one cat gonna do?
He's a little kitty cat. And he's like, I'll fillet you from toe to head, my little man. You just test me. And they're like, okay, we'll say.
Okay, cutie.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, again, if I'm at work and a cat's running up and it's like, hey, can you tell everyone that you work for this made up guy, Bill Gates? This guy that I made up. And I'd be like, sure.
Whatever.
That's our deep lore is Bill Gates does not exist.
It's not my. Yeah, he's like
it's just a cat that goes around and tells people like, hey, tell them you talked to Bill Gates earlier today.
He's like the Dread Pirate Roberts.
Do billionaires ever do any work?
Yeah. and so I would just I'd be like, sure, I don't fucking care. It doesn't matter to me who I say I work for, whatever. But so the king's like going through the kingdom and he's like, whoa, all these people work for you? You have a huge area of land, dude. And he's like, yeah, well, you know, whatever. And then the cat gets to a castle, and in the castle, there's an ogre. This is where it ties back into Shrek, see? Because the ogre lives in the castle. He actually owns all the land around the castle. But the cat does a little bit of reconnaissance, right? Because he's smart. He outsmarts people. And he knows that the ogre is not only an ogre and a lord and a landowner, but
That's a
he's
lot.
also a shapeshifter.
Oh my god, that's
And
a
so-
lot.
And so he's like, so ogre, I came here because I heard you have the amazing power to shapeshift into like elephants and lions and shit. And he's like, yeah, check this shit out. And he turns into a lion and scares the fuck out of the cat. He's like, oh, that is scary. And then he calms down, and they specifically say that his boots are not very good at running on the cobblestone. But the ogre really spooked the cat. I don't. But he goes back, and he's like, "Whoa, that was crazy." But surely you can only transform into big scary things. You could not transform into like really small things like a mouse. And the ogre's like, "What are you talking about? I can transform into anything. Watch." And then he turns into a mouse, and the cat goes, "Oh, and just fucking eats him. And then he's just dead. And so then this cat is just like, hey, everyone who lives in this house, you work for my master now, yeah? And they're all like, I guess. I mean, you just ate an
I
ogre.
guess
Yeah,
he's
we-
not a shape-shifting ogre, but
You
sure.
got ate by a our guy got ate. And in a stroke of luck, the ogre was getting ready to have a great feast for all of his attendants that day.
Yeah,
And so all of the halls were decked with decorations and
Mhm.
food. And then the king shows up and he's like, this is where you live? You did all this for us? And then the miller's son, who's now just is the Marquis of Carabas, he just faked it till he maked it, is like, yes. And then he's like, dude, I don't want he actually does say something like this. He's like, dude, I just want you to know that if you don't bang my daughter right now, that's on you. Like, I'm good with it. She's down. So
she's
you know.
she's like, I heard
As
you
you
like
will.
cats, and that's pretty cool. I like cats too.
That's cute. I also put little booties in my cats. That's so fucking cute. And so the guy just fucking becomes royalty and then marries into royalty for real. And then it says Puss became a great lord and never ran after mice anymore, but only for his diversion, because he's a little scamp. He likes to chase mice too. So, and then the moral, according to this, is
There's
how
a moral?
advantageous it may be by long descent of pedigree t'enjoy a great estate, yet knowledge how to act we see, joined with consummate industry, nor wonder yet thereat, doth often prove a greater boon, as should be to young people known.
Yeah, so
So
this is from like a like time and grouping of fairy tales where they would just straight up have a rhyme at the end that told you what the moral was
Yeah.
supposed to be. And yeah, this one is supposed to be in maybe a better summation, like the clothes maketh the man.
Yeah.
And,
Because they saw
like-
a cat wearing boots and they were like, yeah, he obviously works for a great lord. Look at his little shoes.
I feel like I don't know how well that resonated with Italian people in the 1800s, but I just love that reading it nowadays, like the moral that I get from it is like it is acceptable and perhaps encourageable to lie to and cheat the rich.
Yeah.
I wish we could just a lot of stories would just take inspiration from the Twilight Zone, the original one, where he'd just be like, well, anyway, wasn't that fucked up? I'm Rod Sterling.
I'm Rod Stewart. Did you see that cat? Anyway.
Did you see that shit? Anyway.
We'll see you the
That's
next
just
time.
what it should have been.
I am Antonio Banderas. That was pretty crazy, huh? Anyway.
Yes, I do am Antonio Banderas. Yes, that was great.
he's talking to himself.
I liked that very much.
Speaking of Antonio Banderas talking to himself, let's cap this off by talking a little bit about the Zorro movies because Ethan, you and I both watched these. Lizzie tried to watch one of them and fell asleep.
I tried to watch 2 of them.
And fell asleep both times.
Fell asleep both times.
And it is, as we said, Puss in Boots. Like, obviously, the Puss in Boots from the Shrek is kind of related to this fairy tale creature. He fights an ogre. That's the thing that happens. He's very clever. But in all mannerisms, I think he's just is Zorro. And it's important to know what that means. Ethan, do you want to fill us in a little bit about the legend of Zorro?
All right, sounds great. So we started in on this a little bit, but Zorro was a pulp fiction that was created in 1919, and it was meant just to be like a one-shot thing, but it was so popular that they just kept writing more. Of course, the writing did not end up like the rest of the Pulp Fiction books did not sell nearly as well, but it really like took people by storm with movie and film adaptations, right? There were many Zorro movies like from the black and white era. There were TV series. There was like Zorro was everywhere.
Yeah, he's a great character. He's a hero of the people, you know.
He is a great character. He's got that whole thing where he is heavily based on these stories from the past and then also heavily influenced a lot of stories that we tell nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So Zorro, the character himself, he is a lot like Robin Hood is one of the big examples, right? As he is somebody who is a rich person but fights for the good of the common man.
Is Robin Hood rich? I think he lives in a forest.
Yeah, I mean he's his father is super rich and then he forgoes it. But yeah, Robin Hood is a lord.
Okay.
It's
just like if you were like, "Hey, I live in a forest," I'd be like, "Oh, because you're homeless."
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you tell your rich dad that you don't want to do rich people stuff anymore, that does usually make you homeless.
Yeah, I like Zorro's house because it's called a hacienda, and there's a bunch of secret passages all throughout it, so that you can do secret shit in there.
Hell yeah. But yeah, so he's like Robin Hood in that, you know, he's like the rich guy who, you know, bucks the class system, but also in that, you know, Robin Hood as a character, he doesn't just like beat his opponents, he makes fools of them.
Yeah.
And
rich people deserve to be. If there's a moral, hey, if this episode was like an old-timey fairy tale and there was a moral to it, the moral is to make fun of rich people because they totally deserve it. And steal their money if you can.
And colonialists.
And if they can turn into a little mouse, just eat them.
Just
eat the rich if they can turn into little mice.
I bet, hey, Jeff Bezos, I put this podcast on one of your hosting sites. I bet you can't even give me $10 million. I bet a small man like you could not even muster it. You fool.
Hey,
you
Elon
buffoon.
Musk, I bet you can't even turn yourself into a Tesla so that I can just drive you and have you explode on your own.
This is a weird fan fiction you're writing.
No, I love it. I think we were talking about something else. We were talking about Zorro.
Oh, jeez.
So Zorro takes
I'm dashing and strong.
He takes a lot of influence from Robin Hood, and then he also takes like a lot of influence from just like general you know, trickster folklore and such.
His name means fox.
His name means
cunning.
Yeah, his name means fox. He took a lot from Renard the Fox. All kinds of things like that. Like one of the biggest things about Zorro is definitely that he doesn't just beat his opponents, he makes fools of them.
Was making the Z was that in the original things or was that a movie invention?
No,
I believe that was that in the old pulps?
I saw some screenshots of some of the older ones. Yeah, he's like carving a Z into this dude's head.
Oh, I can see it over
This one's from the golden age of comic books. So between 1938 and 1955.
a little more brutal than Goofy, but yeah, Zorro was kind of the first and archetypal hero with a secret identity.
Yeah.
There's definitely like all sorts of heroic folklore and such that come before, but Zorro really popularized this idea of the hero who has the alter ego.
Which is not what Puss in Boots did. He's just like, oh, I am Puss in Boots.
True.
Everyone knows me. I'm wanted everywhere. Yet no
Well,
one
if he
catches
takes
me.
off the hat and the sword and the boots, he's just a little kitty cat.
That's
That's
right. He
true.
does.
He
He
did
does
go
do
into
that as a
hiding. You're
bit a
right.
few times.
You're right. Okay. So maybe he is. Maybe he is
but-
more than we think.
But yeah, so Zorro is the infamous bandit slash hero, but it is Diego de la Vega.
Diego de la Vega.
His alter ego is he's just a super rich landowner in California.
He's a
And-
Don.
Indeed. And so you can see the like parallels with Batman, right? Where the rich guy is secretly fighting
Yeah.
for the people. He has the same kind of things of like recurring villains and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I love that with Batman, you have the whole thing where Bruce Wayne as the identity is like a playboy, he's like,
Mhm.
to keep my secret from everyone, I have to bang these 3 supermodels so that
Yeah.
nobody suspects Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
For Diego, it is very much that he just like plays a ridiculous over the top coward and ninny.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he's
He
just like,
plays, if I may, a fop, which is a old timey archetype where you are like, fighting and riding horses, how deplorable. I would never dirty my boots with such things. I hire people to do those things for me.
Basically, I think I've seen arguments that online about how they're like, how do people not know that Bruce Wayne is Batman if he's gonna act so like miserable and he's never gonna show up at the same place and
Right.
time?
He always,
And then I saw someone was like, listen, it's like if one of the Kardashians was a superhero, you would never think that they were a superhero. So that's what I'm picturing for Zorro here too, that he's playing this rich celeb that
right. Yeah, for
That's
Zorro, for Zorro and Diego, that is spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's totally just people are like that incompetent, like, because Diego also like he didn't make his own fortune, right? It was daddy's like fortune,
Yeah.
daddy's land, so he's like everybody's just like, this guy is just an idiot who, inherited his father's stuff.
right.
But
he plays into that because he is cunning like the fox. He knows that people's expectations of you are far more powerful than your actual abilities, which
So-
is why I act like a fool and a fop in my podcasts, so that people will never know my true identity, my true powers as a Let's Player. I mean,
Yeah,
I hope
right.
that they know I'm
And
a
it's like
player.
how Puss in Boots, I guess, like he plays a cat, also just a cute little cat
Right.
to some people.
Well, because he has the power of suggestion. He has like the command spell where he uses
Super
his
cute.
big eyeballs and he goes,
Yeah.
"Ooh."
Oh,
And then he disarms you with that and he
Mhm.
goes, "Angard!"
But yeah, so we there's many different like iterations of Zorro, just like any other kind of like, just caped hero-esque character. But we have been talking an awful lot about Antonio Banderas, so I want to quick go over his movie from my, late 90s childhood,
Yeah, it was a quick one.
which is wilder than I remember it. We have our bad guy, Don Rafael Montero. He is like this baddie governor in California, right? And he figures out that this Zorro guy who has been giving them trouble for ages is Don Diego. And it's worth noting at this moment that Don Diego was cast to be Sean Connery, but
oh,
he dropped out. He didn't want to do it.
I
So
would never play a Spaniard. Deplorable people there.
yeah, that's very likely what he said. But so Anthony Hopkins took over as Don Diego instead, and it's so weird because you can tell that it is not Anthony Hopkins playing Don Diego, it is Anthony Hopkins playing Sean Connery playing Don Diego.
It's so bizarre. But at first I was like, why do they have this white guy playing like
I was awake for that part.
Why do they have this white guy playing like a Mexican guy? And then they're like, we're in California, and also I'm from Spain, and I'm like,
Yeah, they're
okay, I mean,
Spaniards.
technically then
They're
I guess you would be white.
Yeah.
Spanish. Yeah, people from Spain are white.
Lizzie
So
coming in with the
You'd be
the
surprised.
shout out, the call out.
I mean, just to be clear, because
Just
you'd
so
be
we're clear.
surprised at how many people don't realize that. It's like, where is Spain on the
yeah,
map?
the Europeans.
It's
They're
in Europe.
literally next to France. Think about French people, but
Mhm.
with sexier accents. Oh,
Impossible.
yes. Oh, oui.
Omelette
Oh.
du fromage.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Okay.
You got
Yeah.
me back.
Exactly. All right. So
Exactly. Nice, dude.
so Montero has figured out that Diego is Zorro. So he sends troops to his estate, and in the shootout, Diego is captured and his wife Esperanza is accidentally killed in the crossfire.
Esperanza.
Diego is sent to prison, and Montero, he just like fucks off back to Spain. He's like, all right, mission accomplished. So then we have our other character, Antonio Banderas is playing Alejandro, who is he starts out as a bandit, right? And he and his brother are these two, right? They're kind of like goofy scamp bandits.
Yeah.
They do cons, like their scene starts with them trying to collect the bounty on themselves. But it gets not so scamp funny when his brother just gets fucking murdered by
he's beheaded.
by Montero's right-hand man. I think it was Corporal Love or something like that.
Yeah, he's just a white guy manifesting some destiny out here.
Exactly. So right around the same time, Montero returns with his beautiful daughter to show like, we own things here. And this spurs Diego to finally escape prison to try and get his vengeance. So we have these two meet up, Don Diego, the old Zorro who needs vengeance, and Alejandro who wants vengeance for his brother. And so,
Yeah.
of course, we're going to have a training montage where Diego teaches Alejandro how to become the new Zorro. And also, because everything has to be a reference to something else, it does steal, like, a whole lot of stuff from, like, Count of Monte Cristo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, in fairness, like there was a scene where Zorro is fighting the young señorita inside of a barn, and I was like, "It's just a fight scene from fucking Pirates of the Caribbean where they're fighting inside of a barn." Like they're all just doing the same thing.
Everything's derivative.
Yeah.
Everything is derivative.
Maybe we should do a whole episode on Zorro, because I also saw the second one, and there's so much. It's like wild what they do to my boy in the second one.
I slept through all of it, so I can.
It would be,
Well, maybe we shouldn't do it then. It's a
would-
snoozer.
It would
Well,
be no. It's
We were
it's-
watching it at
no,
like
it's so
midnight.
good.
Which is
I'm
not
just
when-
messing with you. I'm just
not
messing
the
with you.
area I can watch movies.
But all right, so Alejandro becomes the new Zorro, and in that like 90s tradition of like, we're doing this thing but in a new modern style, like he's even more of like a scamp and just like a 90s kid than
he's
the
in
regular
scamp
Diego.
mode all the time. Yeah.
He's going full goblin mode.
You forgot to say the best part about the movie, which is that they draw a Z into stuff, goes choo, 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 and then fire explodes out of it. But then they're like, "Hey, what sound does fire make?" And they're like, "Panther roar sound."
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
like, that sounds right."
That's the intro.
And then they play the panther roar sound. It's like, choo, 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 choo. It's fucking rules.
And so this whole time that he's training up, Alejandro is also fallen hard for Montero's beautiful daughter, but shocker, Montero's daughter is actually Diego's daughter,
Oh.
who
I know-
he
that
just
wasn't even a
fucking
twist in the
stole.
movie.
Yeah.
He
No,
just
it wasn't.
Stole him. Yeah.
No,
I
it
mean,
wasn't.
you can steal a baby. They don't know.
I bet, yeah. I mean, I guess if you're gonna kill the mom and imprison the dad, like, yeah, you can just steal a baby.
Except except she was like, I remember this smell. I smelt it when I was a baby. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? I've never smelled a thing and been like, oh, right, from the thing of when I was a baby.
I don't have any baby memory.
No, nobody does.
I only have the memory of this one smell. It is poopy diaper.
I was going to say Mountain Dew. That's when you
But-
started.
All right, so yeah, I mean it's the very basic like 90s movie after that, right?
Yeah.
They fall in love. Now they have to defeat Montero both to save the girl and to get vengeance, and they do so, and it's great.
Yeah, I love that.
And then they all do a dance musical at the end.
Hell yeah.
Yes.
I think maybe we can talk about Zorro in another one because that could be kind of funny. But otherwise, this is the end of our episode on Puss in Boots. We want to give a big thanks again for Lizzie for coming out, for bringing her knowledge of cats and boots. She's an expert on both.
That's a new one.
Mhm.
I
But
have
yeah.
seen she owns 3 cats and she owns many boots. And
That's true.
I'm sure we can put them together and just sort of see what happens. And I want to thank you guys, our faithful audience, for listening once again. That's going to be another episode for us. But hey, before you go, why don't we do some quick plugs? Because this is a channel that has lots of different things we do, like streaming over at twitch.tv/cookingwithspices, where we have been streaming video games again. Played a couple new games. I played that Hi-Fi Res game where it's like a beat 'em up, but it's also a rhythm game. And I'm doing some races of some old school games with our friend Mishka. And there's all sorts of things over there. And hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, well, hey there. You're looking at you right in the face. That's pretty cool. Why don't you hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and ask your friends to do the same. We'd love it if you brought us more engagement. And hey, send us some show ideas. This one was a fan submitted show idea. We have a Twitter at Spices With. You can tweet at us there. You can DM us with some good ideas. And we have an email, cookingwithspices69@gmail.com. Send us an email like a older person might, and or maybe just check in. If you need a pen pal, I don't know. I'm just hanging around these days.
Nobody ever checks in on us. We're not doing great.
Yeah, send Ethan a letter. I won't tell you his address, but I'm sure someone can figure it out. But that's it for the stuff we do. If that's it, as if there's not like a whole bunch of great content for you to go look at. But on top of that, we want to thank Galestorm Kitsune for doing all of our graphic design for the channel. And we want to thank Apagio for the awesome intro and outro music, rivaled only by the really cool chase scene music from Puss in Boots, where they do the thing with the castellanettas, where it's like tick, 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 and there's like maracas, and then there's the guitar comes in, it's like and it's all awesome. But that's gonna do it for us for this week. Until we see you guys again, I've been CJ.
And I've been Ethan.
And I've been Liz.
And face me if you dare.
Fear me.
Fear me if you dare.